Good afternoon, everyone. Afternoon now. Okay, so we're doing Musar and Alshech on the beautiful Parashat here in the ancient synagogue in Tzfat. And we're learning Parashat Ekev. And we are learning how the reward of mitzvot exists in this world and what really the significance of mitzvot is and how the reward works. V'ha'inyan. The piece begins v'ha'inyan lelamed la'adam dat. A person should receive this wisdom and this knowledge. Ba'alim at be'inav shmiat oznav divrei Torah. A person should not see insignificance in keeping the mitzvot. Ki al yada yizkeh l'shmo v'lasot. Through keeping one mitzvah, he'll be given the opportunity to do more mitzvot. Ki Ekev tishmeun et mitzvot Hashem, b'tzchar mitzvot hashmiya, through listening to Hashem's word, tizku ki ushmartem v'asitem otam, you'll be able to do another mitzvah. Sha'akarev etchem lidei zchut, I will bring you closer to more opportunities to do mitzvot. V'asalek kol me'ik, and I'll also remove anything that's preventing you to do mitzvot, whether it's practical or physical, the inner preventions. Ve'ezor etchem, and I'll actually help you lavi hashmiya lidei shmira, so that what you're listening to and what you've internalized in terms of the truths of Hashem's world, you'll actually be given the opportunity to carry that out in reality. Hu davar gadol makir ekah. This is a great thing to those who acknowledge and appreciate the value of mitzvot. So it's interesting. I'm not sure if he's saying that that listening. He's saying a bit different to.
The reward for listening is that
you get to do right. Before he said the reward for doing is doing more. Yeah. Here he's saying a little bit different, that the reward for learning Torah, for internalizing the truth of the Torah, is that Hashem gives us the opportunity to actually be able to do it. And that kind of comes down to where the Gemara has a question of whether learning Torah is more important or doing mitzvot is more important. And the Gemara says learning is more important. Why? Because it makes us be able to do. So it's kind of like leaving the question open, like ultimately we're saying learning is important because doing is important. So they're both important, but the meaning, the purpose is that we don't just learn for theoretical knowledge and intellectual stimulation. The purpose of learning is to know what to do. And here Rav Moshe is actually telling us that learning actually has a power to give us siyata d'shmaya and godly intervention to enable and to remove any prevention that might be in the way of doing. V'agav orche limdanu ba'omro otam, ki mamash asiyat shel havaya metziut kayam hu oseh b'asot hamitzvah. Here Rav Moshe is telling us another interesting thing, which Rav Moshe seems to like to repeat this a lot, is that when you do a mitzvah, it's not just doing a mitzvah, it's not just a dry act, it's actually creating something. The quality and the power of the mitzvah creates light, and it creates angels, and it creates spiritual forces. Every mitzvah is actually representative of a spiritual energy in the higher worlds, in the spiritual worlds, and this is actually what we're doing. We're doing a mitzvah is we're creating spiritual forces around us. So now we're going over to the next part of the mitzvot, which are called mishpatim. Which we said before, mishpatim, it means doing mitzvot that are logical. What is mishpatim? A person would have done this regardless of the Torah. Specifically, these mishpatim. What does that mean? Chukim and mitzvot, for sure, there's reward in the way we've described. Even logically based or logically understood mitzvot, you're also going to receive all of this eternal reward. So why we specifically mention mishpatim? Because that's what we're saying. The mishpatim are something that you would think you don't receive reward for. You would have done the mishpatim regardless of the Torah. So how is that something that deserves reward from Hashem? If you want a functioning society, you must have a just law system. To explain why mishpatim are considered mitzvot and deserve reward in Olam Haba, lomar, these mishpatim. What does that mean? Hashem gives reward for doing mishpatim is because it's not any law book that we're following. A man a Jew could have said, if the purpose of the mishpatim is only laheshir b'hem tabriyat, in order to make people act in a straight, fixed manner, bal yivla eshet re'ehu, so one doesn't swallow up his friend, obviously proverbially. Imkain, eifo, if so, ma lo yitbarach im na'eg mishpatei torato, but yet mishpatei tatot mimusim matziyosiyot adei chachmei goyim. Does Hashem really care if we follow the Jewish law or if we follow American law or secular law? It makes no difference. Ultimately, it's creating a functioning society. The main point is, he can claim, is to create awareness and wisdom of a way to create a society, so people can function in a fixed, straight manner. Also with the non-Jews version of Mishpat, that creates a peaceful existence. Hashem's complete Torah and says, no. What is why does Hashem give you reward for keeping regular justice in your midst? Because you're following these laws, Hashem's laws. You're not saying that it doesn't make a difference which law you're following. The main thing is to create a just society. And even though there is, if you're coming from a place of logic, there would be no difference which law you're following. But because we're not coming from a place of logic, we're following Hashem's laws. This is why the reward for doing mitzvah is actually very great.
So the elu is to differentiate from other mishpatim.
Right, non-Torah based mishpatim.
But we still haven't answered the question of which of the three has the reward.
So we're saying it's all three. But we're specifically mentioning mishpatim to create this chidush that even mishpatim. So we're saying there is no difference.
He said at the beginning there are three types of reward.
Right, so now he said already in the beginning of this piece that chukim mishpatim, chukim and mitzvot are automatically included. There's no reason to think that they are not included in this in all three rewards.
Chukim and mishpatim.
Chukim and mitzvot.
And mitzvot
Are all the more so.
We would assume that the reward is next to it.
Right. The only need is to specify mishpatim because we would have thought that it's not right.
But all three, the truth is that all three get a reward.
All three get all three types of rewards.
All three get all three types of rewards.
Right. It's interesting that right now the Daf Yomi is doing Baba Batra, and Baba Batra is like the longest pages in Shas, and it's interesting that I think there's very, very, very few in all these pages. None of it is based on a pasuk that says, where do we know this law from? Because it's all based on human logic and how societies should act between neighbors and between transactions. And that's the most beautiful thing, because it's almost saying, like, how does godliness manifest in the world? By creating peace between people, right? Because really the concept of God being one, but then creating a world of lots of people, our job is to bring oneness even though there's multiplicity, right? That's the general idea of every mitzvah. So if we have the awareness that doing justice is a godly thing, and we're doing the version of justice based on the Torah's principles, that is deserving of reward. V'shema tomru. So the question is, what is actually the difference? Like we just said now, what is the difference between American law and Torah law. They all got the same ideas in mind. So what's the difference? What's the difference? L'maisa, tachlis, what's the difference? What's the difference between one justice and the other? The main point is, what's the purpose of justice? That there should be peace between the people. People should act in a straight way. That's why we say, the Pasuk follows on to say that we should keep and observe the mitzvot. This is what we mentioned, says Rav Alshech, in our explanation on Parashat Mishpatim. That the reason we don't go to non-Jewish courts and we don't follow the non-Jewish law system is because Mishpatei ha'amim b'dineim en b'hem sod o yichut kedusha bilti im b'tziyut yashara. There is no secret or underlying holiness in the laws of the non-Jews. They don't know that when the non-Jews are making these laws, all they're thinking about is what's going to be the most effective way of keeping the peace. Whereas the Jewish laws have underlying layers of secrets and underlying layers of connection to God as the basis for these rules. Obviously still following the laws of logic, but they're coming from a whole different perspective, and they're coming from the Kedusha. And therefore, Hashem's mishpatim are all very holy. Just like when a person does a mitzvah in this world, it creates angels, it creates spiritual light. Just like that happens when you do mitzvot, the same will happen also by doing justice of the Torah-based justice. Just like the creation of angels, you're creating. If you would follow, if you would implement and use the non-Jewish law systems, that would not create spiritual angels and lights in the world, because it doesn't have any underlying holiness. It doesn't have any underlying holiness, which is the foundation and the secret behind all of the Jewish mishpatim. Okay, so now we're going to move over to discussing the concept we spoke about before of the promise Hashem made and the covenant He swore to the forefathers, and how that, and the Rosh is going to tell us a very, very interesting thing here, which I never knew this until now. It still seems quite a big chiddush to me. So let's see. Va'amar od halo amarti lecha ki tiyeh sachar mitzvah mitzvah. The first level of reward you're going to receive in this world is the ability to do another mitzvah. V'hinei od shenit, there's another thing you'll receive in this world. V'hu ki shamar Hashem Elokecha lecha. Hashem is saying the following. Hashem is going to keep. So we're not opposite. We're not going to receive any other reward in this world, right? Because we're saying as follows: that Hashem wants to keep the real reward for the world to come. So that's where it's really in its full expression, right? So the famous story of Rabbi Hanina Mendoza, when he really was poor, and they brought him down one of the legs of his table in Gan Eden, the gold leg, and his wife was really excited, but he said that he had a dream where he saw that he was on a table with only 2 legs, and the other people had 3. So, and obviously this is it's describing the fact that in Olam Haba, it's for all eternity, and it's on a way higher level, and it's way less, it's not bound by time or limitations of the body. So obviously we never want to cash in a reward that is possible to receive and is mainly receivable in the world to come, in this world. Right? It's like the famous the test theory. You put two kids in a room, and you can have 1 jelly now or 2 in an hour. Right? So that's really like being a Jew is kind of exercising that self-control your whole life, kind of saying I'll have the real reward then, and I'm not going to cash in my cash for jellies. So what we're saying now is that besides the reward for the reward for the mitzvot, there's another thing that we're going to keep for the world to come. So what Rav Moshe has done here is he's connected last week's parasha to this week's parasha. Last week's parasha, the rabbis explained, is inferring from the fact that it says, now we do mitzvot. The rabbis say that means to insinuate that now we do, but in the world to come we receive the reward. So we've already mentioned the fact that we receive the reward in the world to come. Now, following on in this week's parasha is just the details of what do we receive in the world to come, what do we receive in this world, right? So that takes away the whole discussion that we had before of why are you telling me that the sechar of the mitzvah is only the keeping of the covenant of the forefathers? Because that's not the only thing. Obviously, there's the main reward, which I mentioned last week already. Now we're going in to talk about the other reward, which is called the covenant of the forefathers. And what we're saying is, just like Hashem chooses for our benefit to delay the reward to the world to come, also the reward that he wants to give us based on the promise he gave to our forefathers, that as well, the shamar, he will keep it for you. For when? For the future, the world to come. L'cha la'atid. Al-derech ma'amaram al ma sheberach Yitzchak li'Yaakov shelo nitkaimu u'shmurat atid lavo. As the Midrash says, that Yaakov received blessings from Yitzchak, and he didn't receive them. They weren't manifested in this world. Why they're not manifested? Because a Jew receives his reward in the world to come. And we're happy to do that. Whereas the non-Jews, they want it instant. Money, cash. And that's why the famous story of Eov, the Gemara says in Bava Batra in the beginning there, that Job was a very righteous non-Jew. And the whole purpose of his life was to show that when a Jew suffers seemingly for no reason, even though they're completely righteous, like Avram Avinu. Avram Avinu was also tested with lots of different things. He was happy to just keep the commitment to Hashem and know that there's ultimate good and just stay focused, even all the trials he went through. Whereas Eov, right, that's what the Satan said to God. Like, have you seen anyone like Avram? And Satan said, yeah, I've seen Eov, and that's when the whole thing began, because the Maharsha there explains that the nations of the world could claim to God and say, okay, you're doing a trick on us. You pay us in this world, right? The famous line, like Hashem pays the non-Jews in this world, and then in the next world they're gone because He's already paid them off. Whereas the tzaddikim, it's the other way around. In this world they suffer, and they suffer even more than they deserve, so that they can receive reward in the world to come. So that the nations of the world can say, who said, why are you giving us this crappy deal of receiving reward in this world? So that's what the story of Eov was to prove to them, that a non-Jew doesn't know how to last out because eventually Eov broke down and he started questioning God's ways. So you're saying that, okay, so let me find the most righteous non-Jew and see how he's happy to delay his reward in the world to come, and he wasn't. So it's kind of like really making that, obviously now every Jew's got his own personal struggles, but like the stereotypical, like the archetypical Jew, Avram, and the archetypical Jew, non-Jew Eov, right? So that's what we're saying here. A Jew wants his reward in the world to come, and we are happy to exchange it for something more valuable. Ve'im tomru, if you will say, im keimano chal ba'olam hazeh, what am I going to eat in this world? If I'm going to put everything I deserve for Olam Haba, what's going to be here? So that the answer to that is alo parot masecha. You're going to receive the interest, the profits, in addition to the principal. Ki va'hevcha, because Hashem loves you. V'hu ki kol ma she'tivdecha lo yeh l'man she'ahavti t'avetecha rak va'hevcha. Ki eshmor lecha avat avetecha v'asher nishba'ti lehem. So Rav Moshe is now introducing the third type of reward, which isn't to receive reward in this world, it's to receive the peirot, the interest in the mitzvot. And what we're saying is that Hashem's going to love us, meaning, what does it mean He's going to love us? He's going to give us interest in this world based on the fact that we do mitzvot. So it seems to be that just like the love that Hashem had with the forefathers continued for generations to come, and we're still receiving reward for that, and that we kind of cashed in for Olam Haba. Now there's also the reward, the love that we receive from the fact that we do mitzvot. So it seems to be that is cashed in as reward in this world, because it doesn't affect the principle. So it's kind of seems to be like the fruits of the forefathers wasn't in this world. They kind of had terrible lives in a way. They were suffering from all kind of angles, and the fruits of their work is us, is the grandchildren. Whereas our fruits, what we're doing, we take in this world, and that's what we have to live off, and to not have a miserable life. Od limad limdanu limud gadol. Another difference is that is mentioned in this parasha, which makes the differentiation between avodat Hashem and working for a regular work for another human being. The explanation that we have, Ramosha says, that he explained in this pasuk in the parasha of Berach et Lachmecha, I believe it's Parashat Kitisa. V'hu kiderech, maybe. V'hu kiderech hamelech v'asar v'adam v'tzavatot elef ma'avadav v'yasu lo avodah. So that's an example of a king inviting 1,000 of his workers to do a job. Kinyan, if not la'ir or migdal, to build a castle or a city. So when it comes to the payment, first of all, he doesn't care what kind of spirit the building goes on. The building takes place. He's not interested whether they're doing it together in a team spirit, or even if everybody's got earphones and just doing his own thing. That's one thing that the physical human king doesn't care about. Another thing is, when he pays the wages, he doesn't go into details of how much you did. You were hired for the job, it's $1,000 for the job, take your money and go home. I'm not going to go into, I did a bit more work, that guy had a few more cigarette breaks, that guy didn't work, I'm better. Equal pay, take your money and go. If everybody gets 1,000 golden coins for the job, everybody gets the same wage. Hashem is not like that. Regarding both of these things. Hashem commands all of the Jews to do his mitzvot. It's not the same. He does pay attention how the mitzvot are done. And therefore, it's not the same when there's mu'atim osim mitzvah, lemurubim osim mitzvah, whether there's one individual doing mitzvah, or whether there's a team of Jews doing the mitzvah. The pasuk says in Torah, the Mishnah says, right? It says that 5 will be able to run after 100 non-Jews, and 100 will run after 10,000. So the proportion doesn't add up. So what do the rabbis say? That the more Jews you have, it grows exponentially the schut they have. It grows the more Jews are in a team serving God together, that is the most it has more of an effect. That's number one. This is still continuing this point. It doesn't continue in the same proportion. Rather, it grows more than right? As we said, 5 is 100, so that's 20 times as many people. And then when it's 100, they can run after 10,000, which is 1,000 times. Well, not it's 100, so It went up 5 times in proportion. There'll be more sechar if 2 people work together. And this goes on ad infinitum. Hashem's will is lots of Jews together should be doing mitzvah. Don't be worshipping by yourself, right? We should, like it says, when you do a mitzvah, we should say B'Shem Kol Yisrael. It's the right. We should say V'haftarech Kamocha in the beginning of the day, because we're not worshipping by ourselves. We're here as a team. We're here as a collective unit. Tishma'un u'shmartem v'asitem. When it comes to doing the mitzvot, it's plural because it's a teamwork. Ach b'shal moschara. When it comes to payment, lo yamad derech klal. When it comes to payment, he's not just going to give us a flat check, a flat rate. Everybody will receive reward based on their individual situation. One is not like the other. Even if there's 600,000 people doing one mitzvah, and nobody will receive the same reward. It's a very powerful thing. Why? Because Hashem knows the intricate details of every person's situation. Kihu Peles was named Mishpat Hashem. Hashem has a very fine, intricate, balanced scale and judgment methods. V'shokel bepeles, and he weighs with intricacy. Maseh kol ish veish. Every individual. Lomar zayel panu masuka. He was bored anyway. He had nothing to do with his day. He did a mitzvah. But he actually had to go and leave his job, leave his livelihood to do the mitzvah. So obviously that's a big difference, right? And Moshe is going to go into many details. Very interesting how he breaks down life and into all of these different varying factors, where Hashem really knows what a person went through to do the mitzvah. The one who had to leave his individual needs is obviously gets more sachar. One guy came from a more of a distance, he had to walk more steps. One guy is young and one guy is heavy and old. One guy did it with ulterior motives. People should see, he should become famous with what he's doing, he's learning lots of Torah, whatever. This guy did it just between him and Hashem. Even with people doing ulterior motives, there's obviously people with like intense course into ulterior motives, and some people are trying to do it for Hashem, but obviously the ego gets involved, and then there's also small types of ulterior motives. Even one who does it completely for Hashem's sake. One guy does it with excitement. Even if someone does it with happiness, you see how happiness is not just there's not just one type of happiness. There's complete ecstasy and simple happiness. Anyone does it with extra happiness is even higher. This will be the same thing, will be true as rizut, and how much alacrity and readiness to do it. As much as quick swiftness, he did it. He's like, I can't bother going to shul. I'm just going to watch another movie, maybe later. Alright, that's no result there. Hashem, who knows the inner working of a person. There's infinite levels of differences between every person based on where they're coming from, on their past, on their future, on their present, on their personality, etc., etc., etc. And Hashem gives everybody based on the reality. When it comes to doing the mitzvah, He wants us to be plural, He wants us to do it as a team. But when it comes to the paychecks, that's when it's individual. It's not just send out the checks to everybody the same thing. There, we have a private meeting with Hashem, and Hashem's like, I know what you went through for me. I'll give you a specific amount based on what you did. When it comes to serving Rabim Ka'achad, then everyone's together. When it comes to reward, that's when He gives us all reward individually. The bread reward of Reuven is not the same as Shimon Kamur, as we said. Paul, this is the same what we're saying here. When it comes to doing, it's a group. It's all individual. When it comes to the reward, Hashem knows exactly what everybody went through, and that's what is the reward is different. What we're saying is that we're not saying that Hashem's telling us, oh, I'm going to keep the covenant with the forefathers. Obviously, I want to keep the covenant with the forefathers, but how much everybody will get from that covenant depends on the amount of effort and difficulty they had to endure. Chazak u babsut.